The biggest financial mistakes people make in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. The decade-by-decade money traps that keep people poor. Most people do not ruin their finances with one dramatic mistake. They do it slowly, by making normal decisions at the wrong time, ignoring small leaks, delaying hard choices, and assuming the future will somehow absorb the cost. The problem is that each decade has its own financial trap, and the punishment for ignoring it gets harsher with age. In your 20s, the mistake is usually chaos. In your 30s, it is lifestyle inflation. In your 40s, it is denial. In your 50s, it is running out of time, while still behaving as if retirement is a distant concept. The good news is that none of these mistakes are inevitable, but they do require clear priorities. Your 20s are for building the system. The biggest financial mistake in your 20s is treating money as something to think about later. That feels understandable when earnings are low, rent is high, student debt may exist, and life is changing quickly. But the real value of your 20s is not that you can save huge amounts of money. It is that you can build habits before your life becomes expensive. The first priority is an emergency fund. Not a vague pot of money that gets raided every weekend, but a separate reserve for real problems: job loss, moving costs, medical expenses, family emergencies, urgent repairs, or a sudden income gap. Even a small emergency fund changes behavior because it stops every setback becoming credit card debt. The second mistake is ignoring pensions because retirement feels absurdly far away. That is understandable, but it is also expensive. Pension saving is not only about your own contribution. It can include employer contributions, tax relief, and decades of investment growth. Opting out of a workplace pension to gain a little more take-home pay can mean giving up money that your future self would badly need. The third mistake is confusing affordability with wisdom. A monthly payment can make almost anything look manageable. A car, a phone, a holiday, furniture, subscriptions, buy now, pay later spending, or a lifestyle that looks normal on social media. The question is not whether the payment fits this month. The question is whether your income is being used to build options or to rent an image. Your 20s should be simple. Spend less than you earn, avoid toxic debt, build a cash buffer, start pension saving, learn basic investing, and keep your fixed costs low. That may sound boring, but boring is powerful when repeated for 10 years. The main 20s mistake is buying a lifestyle too early. The danger in your 20s is not buying coffee or having a social life. It is locking in adult expenses before adult income has arrived. A car on finance, a flat you can barely afford, regular holidays on credit, and a wardrobe funded by installments can quietly consume the money that should have become your first safety net. This matters because your early career is unstable by nature. You may change jobs, relocate, retrain, start a business, face redundancy, or discover that your first career path is not the right one. Flexibility is worth more than status in this decade. The person with lower fixed costs has more freedom to take opportunities. There is also a psychological trap. If you learn to solve stress with spending in your 20s, you may carry that habit into every later decade. The numbers get bigger, but the pattern stays the same. A 60 pounds impulse becomes a 600 pounds upgrade, then a 6,000 pounds decision, then a mortgage-sized lifestyle you cannot easily unwind. The practical fix is to create rules before emotion takes over. Save on payday, not at the end of the month. Keep rent and transport costs as low as reasonably possible. Avoid consumer debt unless there is a clear, time-limited reason. Track net worth once a month, because what gets measured becomes harder to ignore. Your 30s are where lifestyle inflation gets dangerous. Your 30s often bring higher earnings, but also higher pressure. Housing, marriage, children, childcare, career demands, family expectations, and social comparison all arrive at once. This is the decade where people can look successful while becoming financially fragile. The biggest mistake is allowing every pay rise to become a permanent spending rise. A better salary can disappear quickly into a bigger home, better car, more expensive holidays, nicer restaurants, upgraded technology, and higher social expectations. The person may feel wealthier, but their margin of safety may not improve at all. The second major mistake is buying property without understanding the full cost of ownership. A mortgage payment is only one part of the equation. Insurance, service charges, maintenance, furniture, repairs, council tax, commuting, moving costs, and interest rate risk can turn a manageable purchase into a monthly trap. Homeownership can be a powerful wealth builder, but only when the numbers work beyond the headline price. The third mistake is not protecting income. In your 30s, other people may start depending on you. That changes the risk calculation. Life insurance, income protection, sick pay terms, emergency savings, wills, and pension nominations may sound dull, but they become serious once a partner, child, mortgage, or family obligation is involved. Your 30s should be the decade where your financial system matures. Your emergency fund should grow. Your pension contributions should rise with income. Your debt should become strategic, not reactive. Your housing decisions should be stress-tested, not driven by panic or comparison. The 30s trap is thinking income solves everything. More income helps, but it does not fix bad structure. Someone earning £35,000 with low fixed costs can be safer than someone earning £80,000 with no spare cash. Financial strength is not measured by salary alone. It is measured by the gap between income and committed spending. This is where many people become trapped by what looks like a normal middle-class life. The car is normal. The bigger house is normal. The nursery fees are normal. The holiday is normal. The problem is that normal can still be unaffordable if it leaves no room for saving, investing, repairs, illness, job loss, or interest rate changes. The practical answer is to force every pay rise to do 3 jobs. Some can improve life now. Some should increase long-term investing or pension saving. Some should widen the safety margin. If every pay rise goes only into lifestyle, the decade is being wasted. Couples also need financial transparency in this decade. Hidden debt, different risk appetites, secret spending, or vague assumptions about who pays for what can become serious sources of resentment. Money conversations are not romantic, but financial avoidance is far worse. Your 40s are the correction decade. Your 40s are when earlier financial choices become visible. Some people arrive with equity, pension savings, manageable costs, and career momentum. Others arrive with debt, weak savings, no clear retirement plan, and a lifestyle that depends on everything going right. The biggest mistake in your 40s is assuming there is still plenty of time. There is time, but not as much as before. Compounding still works, but it has fewer decades to do the heavy lifting. Career earnings may be higher, but family costs can also peak. This is the decade where delay becomes expensive. The second mistake is ignoring pension adequacy. Many people know they have a pension but do not know what it is worth, what it may provide, where it is invested, what fees they pay, or whether old workplace pensions are scattered across previous employers. That is not a plan. It is a hope. The third mistake is carrying consumer debt into middle age. A mortgage may be part of a long-term plan, but credit card balances, loans, overdrafts, and car finance can become wealth killers when they persist for years. Debt does not only cost interest. It steals flexibility, raises stress, and limits the ability to invest when time is already narrowing. Your 40s should be treated as a financial audit. List every asset, debt, pension, insurance policy, subscription, recurring cost, and future obligation. Calculate your net worth. Check your pension forecast. Work out when your mortgage could realistically be cleared. Then decide what must change. The 40s mistake is not facing the numbers. Avoidance becomes more dangerous in your 40s because the numbers are now large enough to matter. A weak pension is not theoretical. A high mortgage is not temporary. A lack of savings is not just an inconvenience. These are signals that the second half of working life needs a different level of control. This is also the decade where parents often overextend themselves. Children may need support, relatives may need care, and household costs may rise. Helping family is understandable, but destroying your own financial future to fund everyone else's needs can create a bigger problem later. You cannot borrow for retirement in the same easy way you can borrow for a car or home improvement. Career risk also changes. Some people become more valuable in their 40s. Others find their skills drifting behind the market. The financial mistake is assuming current earnings are guaranteed. Investing in skills, qualifications, health, and professional networks is not separate from financial planning. It protects earning power. The practical fix is to increase seriousness. Pay down expensive debt. Raise pension contributions where possible. Avoid upgrading your lifestyle just because peers are doing it. Build a one-year view of known costs. If the numbers are bad, face them early enough to still do something about them. Your 50s are the last big planning window. Your 50s are not old, but they are financially decisive. This is the decade where retirement planning moves from abstract to concrete. The biggest mistake is continuing to drift, especially if retirement is expected within 10 to 15 years. The first error is not knowing your retirement number. Many people have a rough hope, but no serious estimate of what they need to live on. That estimate should include housing, food, bills, transport, insurance, health costs, family support, leisure, tax, inflation, and the lifestyle you actually expect. Without a target, it is impossible to know whether you are on track. The second error is taking too much risk or too little risk. Some people panic and chase returns because they feel behind. Others hold too much in cash and let inflation quietly erode their future spending power. The right balance depends on time scale, pension type, other assets, health, income needs, and risk tolerance. Guessing is not good enough in this decade. The third error is treating the mortgage, pension, and work plan as separate issues. They are connected. Retiring with a mortgage, supporting adult children, paying rent, or entering later life with debt can all change the amount of pension income needed. A person may not need to be rich to retire well, but they do need the numbers to join up. Your 50s should involve detailed planning. Find every pension. Check state pension forecasts. Understand when private pensions can be accessed. Review investment risk. Consider whether downsizing is realistic or just a comforting idea. Decide whether working longer, earning more, spending less, or saving harder is required. The 50s mistake is hoping it will somehow work out. Hope is not a retirement plan. By your 50s, the cost of avoidance is measured in choices lost. If the pension is too small, the mortgage too high, or the savings too weak, the options are still there, but they are narrower than they were at 30 or 40. This is also where adult children can become a financial pressure point. Helping with deposits, rent, education, debt, childcare, or emergencies may be generous, but it should not be automatic. Parents who sacrifice their own retirement security may later become financially dependent on the same children they tried to help. Health becomes a financial asset in this decade too. Poor health can reduce working life, increase costs, and limit options. That makes prevention, sustainable work, sleep, exercise, and stress control part of the money conversation. The strongest retirement plan can still be damaged by a body that cannot keep earning. The practical answer is to replace vague optimism with written decisions. What age do you want to stop full-time work? What income will you need? What guaranteed income will you have? What gap remains? What debts must be cleared? What spending must change now, not later? The mistake every decade has in common. The biggest financial mistake across every decade is leaving money on autopilot. In your 20s, autopilot looks like ignoring the future. In your 30s, it looks like spending every pay rise. In your 40s, it looks like avoiding the numbers. In your 50s, it looks like hoping retirement will take care of itself. A good financial life does not require perfection. It requires direction. The person who starts late but acts decisively can still change their future. The person who earns well but avoids reality can still end up trapped. The practical rule is simple. Every decade needs a job. Your 20s, build habits. Your 30s, build structure. Your 40s, correct mistakes. Your 50s, finalize the plan. If you know which decade you are in and what that decade is supposed to do, money becomes less mysterious. The final danger is comparison. Other people's spending is visible, but their debt, family help, inheritance, stress, and financial fragility are not. The goal is not to look wealthy at every age. The goal is to become harder to knock over decade by decade until your money gives you options instead of taking them away.